Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football, and welcome back to the Winning Drive. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by fellow lifetime Longhorn, the young prodigy, C.J. Vogel, and our own coach, former high school football coach at Vernon Capel, Brownwood, Belton, Rotan. Also played college football at Abilene Christian, coached there as well, and was on the staff at the University of Texas for multiple head football coaches. These days, you can get his work at ShipleyRanches.com. It's our own coach, Bob Shipley. What's going on, Coach? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. Waiting for some commits to drop. What you got, CJ?
Yeah, we did have. Well, we got another announcement coming up, though, right? We got one coming up at like 4:00, right, CJ?
Yeah, one more is coming up at 4:00 today. That'll be Jamarian Carlton, Texas Tech, Baylor. The Longhorns are in this. Jeez, I didn't realize the collar was so messed up. Sorry about that.
I gotta pop that collar. There you go.
Apparently not after the way that Texas is recruiting. So
like 5 unbuttoned, things kind of get,
Gotta style it.
Only on a Friday, but yes, Jamarian Carlton will commit at the top of the hour. We'll cover that as well as some look ahead as well. But I know, Rod, you got a whole slate for what's in store for us today.
I see how
is that the Temple kid?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Well, yeah. I used to coach in Temple, and Drayton McClain is former Astros owner and a Baylor Bear supporter. Don't think he doesn't have some say in what goes on in Temple and Baylor.
Okay. Are you foreshadowing bad news, Coach?
No. I'm just saying, Drake McClain, man's got a lot of money. He loves Baylor, and he loves the Temple Wildcats.
Hey,
blue front, white backs, right?
Blue front, white back magic.
Is that the saying?
That's a saying. Yeah, they got their pants are blue in the front and white in the back.
Okay.
And it's blue front, white back magic.
Oh man, I'm not
rolls
say
off the tongue.
A mouthful.
That's a tongue twister right there. All right, so hopefully, and now see some of you guys are not as optimistic out there. Hopefully, Texas will be getting some good news coming up in about 40 minutes or so when Jamarian Carlton's making this announcement coming down mostly to Texas and Baylor. So we'll of course be ready for that, and we'll be covering it. Also, I believe is it tomorrow that Samari Matthews?
Yes.
He will make his announcement, the cornerback, or DB, I should say, but most likely a corner or a nickel back out of North Carolina, correct? He's out of North Carolina. Really good player. I've actually got a chance to watch him. I watched film on both of these guys. Both of them are great players, of course. But, of course, me being a DB, a little bit partial to Samari Matthews. So I'm hoping that they get that one. That would be a nice one. Really, really good, fluid-looking athlete. I mean, just a natural DB. Anyway, we'll get into that. We'll talk a lot about some of the comments made. Coach, I think you're going to enjoy this. And I sent some of these to you from the coaches at Big 12 Media Days.
Yeah, shots are being fired. Yeah, they are. I love it.
They keeping it real, Coach. I think they're a little bit. I think everybody's a little bit on edge because of the house settlement and all this kind of stuff and the changing landscape. So we got some good comments from coaches. Mike Gundy, I want to get into something that he brought up. Sonny Dykes as well. Kenny Dillingham, one of CJ's favorite young coaches out there. He had a lot to say. So I want to get into their comments about revenue sharing. They talked about, talent acquisition, talent retention as well. Talked about how they are going to prioritize and distribute the new revenue sharing for their specific teams. So I think it's going to be a pretty good conversation. So we'll get into that coming up a little bit later on. Heisman Trophy odds and bets. I love it now that some of the numbers are coming out for what are the most bet on games, who are the most bet on players for some of these positions. Of course, Texas and Arch are in the heart of that conversation. So we'll talk about that. But first, let's start with a little bit more recruiting. You did a good job, CJ. You had a tweet earlier today. I'll just give you props, kind of let you explain it. But I don't even know if the purpose was to calm the waters. I don't even know if it did. I think you probably got people even more riled up. But it was to put everything into perspective. Longhorn fans who may be panicking a little bit about Texas recruiting and maybe of the lull in recruiting right now for Texas. Can you summarize your tweet for the people out there? Because I thought it was a really good one.
Yeah, I'll try to pull it up real quick. I think I got it. So it should be coming soon. Here it is. Basically, where Texas was sitting last year to this year in terms of the recruiting rankings, obviously Texas finished #1 in the country with the 25 class. You're almost in the same spot. On3 rivals have you about 16th, 17th. I mean, right now you're actually ahead in the 24/7 spots. Now, what's interesting is about this time last year, you also had a strong spurt of commits in the month of August, right? You know, you're about to flip back Josiah Sharma. You're about to flip Myron Charles. You get Jamie French, Khalid Lockett, and obviously you end very strong with Justice Terry, Michael Terry III, Grayson Littleton emerges on the scene. Texas at 17 commits, 14 non-specialists. So really you're at 14. You probably need to add 10 more. Is Texas in a as favorable spot right now with 5-6 other guys yet to announce? Perhaps not like last year, right? That was the case with some of those guys I just mentioned. But at that same time, look, Josiah Sharma hasn't committed to Texas or had committed elsewhere. Dalen McCutcheon had committed elsewhere. Myron Charles committed elsewhere. You know, Texas had to get 3 big flips, and we've already talked about it. I don't think there's a wide receiver in this class or this freshman class on campus currently who is as advanced in this group as Dalen McCutcheon. We've talked about it with the defensive line class. Texas didn't have a defensive lineman committed right now, in which they have 3 already in the fold. So you can pick and choose positions that are in better positions compared to last year. All in all, you're sitting around a very similar spot as you are last year. And obviously, we saw how the class ended up come November, December. You know, you land a Michael Terry very late in the cycle as well. And I think the class will end up being just fine. But, you know, it's just part of the bumps and the bruises of going through, you know, day to day, week to week, when you're in on so many high level recruitments and it don't go your way, it starts to really pile up in terms of, okay, Texas is falling behind when that's not necessarily the case, or the MO of what we've seen with the staff.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to ask you a question, CJ. How does a change of landscape for the NIL affect this? The changes we saw last year, are these kids that have already committed, are they tied into those NIL deals with those certain schools? Does Texas have to match them? How does that work?
You know, in theory, you would think that they're tied in. Now, I think that there are a lot of schools offering a lot of promises that maybe be pretty difficult to, you know, fulfill. I don't want to say impossible, but, you know, some of the numbers that we're hearing feels certainly impossible. I will say that it appears that a lot of schools are just saying, hey, we don't care. And that hasn't been, I would say Texas has been anything but reckless when it comes to promises that, you know, that they're making to recruits. So I think that's a positive in their side, but obviously you're seeing a lot of maybe recruitments that should go their way, not go their way as a result of some of these promises made elsewhere. So it's all kind of a wait and see, coach, because you don't know, quite frankly, what this might look like come even August or, you know, October when the season starts and you're starting to see all these high schoolers watch the school that they, you know, are committed to currently completely fumble and look around saying, I don't really want to go there anymore. So you don't know currently what those flips might look like for the NIL deals on the back end.
Yeah. And that picture is changing. There's a lot of conversation, Coach. I don't know if you got a chance to check it out. Ross Dellinger did a great job. He wrote an article for Yahoo Sports. We talked about a little bit yesterday, CJ, in the live stream, but he talked about the new commission, right? Basically the College Sports Commission that's supposed to be over the clearinghouse that is supposed to be over approving and denying all of these NIL deals. His article stated that more than 1,200 deals have been submitted to the clearinghouse since the House settlement passed. And he said about a third of them were approved, only a third of them. He said several are still under review. He said 80 were denied and can be resubmitted. He said no deals had advanced past the second denial. Their theory is that teams are just kind of throwing out kind of trial deals, right? To kind of test the commission. to see what they'll allow and what they won't, because they had not stated. Apparently, they just issued a memo. This actually was in an article today. They recently issued a memo to try to define what the collectives, or at least the criteria for the collectives, to be approved or denied by the commission. But thank you very much. That's Ross Dellinger right there. Said the College Sports Commission issued a memo to the ADs earlier this week to further offer guidance on NIL deals. Said the memo obtained by Yahoo Sports notes that most deals that have not been cleared do not meet the quote unquote valid business purpose definition. Many of those from collectives. So I can tell you right now, that's basically going to end up in court right there, Coach. That valid, the valid business purpose is that they're essentially saying that these deals are just NIL deals strictly for the purpose of paying the player, not for providing a service or providing or producing a product for the general good or public. So they essentially want to turn these collectives into middlemen, to third parties who make the deals with the actual businesses and who are almost middlemen in between the business and the student athlete.
Okay, so where does Ojo fit into that? $5+ million guaranteed over 3 years. Has that been approved?
The belief is that at least the theory, and it's just rumor and conjecture, is that it was done before the House settlement. So it was done during the Wild Wild West period still.
Right.
Even though that he committed after the House settlement was already the law of the land, that's the shady part, allegedly, that they had already struck the deal and that he was going on visits knowing that he was already going to be a Red Raider. Like I said, that's just rumor.
Okay, did the University of Texas do that? And if not, why not?
So that's a great point, Coach. To an extent, yes. They don't, in my eyes, they don't, and they have not played the mega ball with a lot of these top recruits, and for a couple of reasons. It's very tough. For one, your incoming sophomores and juniors to look down the road and say, that guy's getting 3 times as much as I am. Why should I stick around?
Yeah.
2, you don't know if that amount will even be able to be paid out. Now, before July 1st, and we saw a number of kids commit or move up their timelines or decisions, at least, before July 1st to say, Coach, school, I'm signing with you. Let's get this pen to pad. I'm going to announce July 4th, right? That might not be what Texas did, but a lot of recruits ended up doing that because of what Rod mentioned before July 1st. It was the Wild West. You could announce, you could assign to these big deals. Now, again, Texas doesn't normally go big for a lot of these kids. I know that they did and have in the past, right? You look at a number of key 5-star recruitments that they've won, but they're not going to go pay $900,000 for, a good kid. They just don't do that. There are very few, contrary to the belief, very few players on the Texas roster making more than $1 million. And I know that when you hear some of the numbers thrown around, you're sitting there saying, well, how's that possible? Texas has one of the highest, reported roster values in the entire country. And yes, but you got to do that 1 through 85. And that's where they've found a lot of success because retention is key. And also not breaking the promises or coming off as if they're selling snake oil is also key because it trickles down into future recruiting cycles. And as we've talked about on the show previously, when you have kids on your roster saying, hey, I'm not getting what I was promised, well, that just in its own way works as recruits telling other recruits or players on your team telling recruits, don't come here. You're not going to get what you're promised. Whereas it's the complete opposite. And I think Texas has done it the right way, as far as I know. And it helps you instill that culture of, hey, the minute you earn it on the field, you'll look around and see what the Texas starters are getting and say, that makes sense. It's just interesting because I think, again, there are a lot of schools promising money in large quantities that just simply cannot or will not be paid out to a lot of these kids making decisions.
And Coach, at Big 12 Media Days, I believe it was Kenny Dillingham and Sonny Dykes. I'll just paraphrase. They both essentially said the bulk of their money, majority of it, will go to the players who are already on their roster that have already proven themselves. They're not paying big dollars and top dollar to recruits from high school coming in. Sonny Dykes said it'd be bad for the culture if that young man had to, obviously be in the same locker room with guys who have played there for 3-4 years, and he's making more money than them. So he stated that publicly.
Well, he actually said he could be making more money than three of the 4 starters.
I believe it.
How do you deal with that locker room situation?
I mean, in the same sense, I know that was a topic of conversation, or I guess when NIL first started. But how do you go about coaching kids who are making twice as much as you? And why? If you're a kid, it's probably pretty easy to sit there and say, "This guy," right? I think it changes a bit of the dynamics. But if in Texas Tech, in this instance for Ojo, look, if the 5.1 is actually what it figures to be, about 45% of that is coming from the revenue sharing, right? So that's your 75% of the $20 million allotted throughout the schools through rev sharing. The other part of it will be through the NIL deals, which obviously we've talked about have to go through the clearinghouse, get fed that way, et cetera, get greenlit through all sorts of back channels. Point being, Texas Tech's been so aggressive through the portal. How do you then go out and say, all right, we need a stopgap left tackle because he might not be ready year one? How do you then go out there and recruit a kid for 2 or 3 years worth of eligibility and say, hey, we got a spot for you. Just letting you know it's a 1-year rental, though, because we got a 5-star kid that we've got to get on the field when he might not be ready. I think it's difficult to do exactly that. And I think it's a little misleading.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I remember the quote from Kenny Dillingham, one of the other coaches at Big 12 Media Days, from the article on Yahoo Sports that we originally started with. He said, quote, we don't know the rules. He said the settlement passed, but who knows what Deloitte, I believe, Deloitte, that's the firm that's over approving the NIL deals in the collective, the commission. The College Sports Commission, and he said until there's clarity, we're living in limbo. He said that they don't really know what the rules are. Nobody.
Well, yeah, they need to clearly define what the rules are. Clearly for everybody to know what they're up against, and that hasn't been done. So some people are kind of fudging a little bit and hoping that they won't get denied. In my opinion.
Yeah, they're being very strict about what they're approving and what they're not approving, but I think they need to be more upfront. Like you said, Coach, they need more transparency about what the criteria is going to be. We're going to accept this, and this, and they apparently the business purpose. That's the language they're kind of getting locked in right now. Yeah. Is that whatever that business, your actual business purpose, because they're claiming that these NIL deals are just fraudulent, basically over the table deals to pay college athletes instead of being having a valid business purpose. It'll probably get settled in court. One other thing, Mike Gundy, who always has something controversial to say, he's very matter of fact. He says, Coach, that ultimately we are beating around the bush here. And that ultimately we have to talk about players becoming employees. He said it straight up. The quote from Mike Gundy at Big 12 Media Days, and I'm not surprised by it because I think he's got a point here. He says you've got to admit players are employees, and then you can build collective bargaining. We've all talked about it, but you have to admit they're employees. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts, Coach? Are we at that point where we finally just got to the point where it's like, all right, you know what? We've been trying to fake this amateurism thing for a while. The NIL thing, yeah, I mean, we couldn't get proper guardrails on it. Now we got revenue sharing. I mean, if we keep going, we're definitely going to end up with them in collective bargaining somehow and a unionization, if you will, of major college sports.
Yeah, I'm just not sure how you merge NIL and collective bargaining. Is it the same organization going to be looking at both of those? or is it two different entities deciding on those two?
They probably would get rid of it.
I don't know. I'm asking.
I'd probably get rid of it altogether and change the entire system again and just almost be expressly like a pro system where you just have endorsements at that point. Now I don't know how it works. That would be a game changer, but that's the next discussion. I'm telling you right now. That's the next discussion because people believe that's what we're getting to because the numbers now are just astronomical. You're talking about a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar business that you're talking about with major college sports, and now they got to pay the players. I think Mike Gundy. I don't know if we'll see it come to fruition, but I do believe at one point we're gonna be talking about paying these guys as employees with insurance.
Yeah, the problem is a place like Oklahoma State football. The revenue they get from football supports every other sport.
It does.
So where do you draw the line? And a line that doesn't affect the other sports and the money they're getting. How do you do that? I don't know. Smarter
men than myself will have to figure it out. But I do believe that is going to be part of the next discussion. Like I said, and maybe I know everybody's tried to avoid it, but the more we try to avoid it, the closer we seem to creep to it. Now we're at revenue sharing now. Did anybody think we'd be at revenue sharing? We're in rev share. $20 million cap. Even Dion said they need another kind of hard cap on it too. We need an NFL salary cap, basically.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting, and we talk about the, a CBA, perhaps, if you're paying kids as employees, a CBA has to be involved there. And then that brings the threat of lockouts or et cetera. And now you're just playing professional football. And hey, maybe that's eventually what this turns into is, the NBA has the G League. You just scrap whatever developmental league you have in the UFL or whatever, and you just turn college football into that. Because essentially that's what it is to an extent. Now you put a title on it, call it a CBA, or call it employees, make a CBA, and that's your minor leagues.
Yeah, like I said, it'd be interesting to see where it goes because I do believe they're going to end up back in court with kind of the language now in the new house settlement as it relates to NIL deals in the clearinghouse. All right, let's thank our sponsors. Thank our friends over at Von Lane. Before we continue, thank you to Von Lane for sponsoring the Winning Drive. If you have to get to any of the major Texas cities, in between any of the major Texas cities, trying to get to Houston, you're trying to get to San Antonio, you're trying to get to Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin even. Well, it's a bit of a toss-up, right? Do you deal with the airport chaos, hoping your flight isn't delayed, and just dealing with the general high stress levels of any airport experience? Or do you brace yourself for hours behind the wheel, battling traffic and burning the entire day of productivity, dealing with road rage as well? Well, the third option is better in each and every way, and it's my friends over at Von Lane. You arrive at a luxury hotel terminal, no TSA lines, no long-term parking lots, just a seamless boarding experience that takes minutes, not hours. You settle into a plush leather seat, a hot towel, pillow, and blanket are at arm's reach. Your attendant offers complimentary snacks, beverages, and on select trips, a full meal if you'd like. And if you need to relax, well, you can lean back and just enjoy the ride. But if you want to stay productive, there's high-speed Wi-Fi and power at every seat. So while you're unplugging or powering through, the Von Lane team will be monitoring traffic in real time, using smarter routes and efficient detours to keep your trip smooth and on schedule. And now it's the perfect time to plan your fall travel. Booking is open through September. So whether you're headed to a college football game, like a lot of you will be, or a weekend getaway, or a business trip that needs to be done right, Von Lane makes the journey part of the reward. Von Lane serves Austin, Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and in the Southeast, Atlanta, Nashville, and Memphis. Visit vonlane.com. That's VONLANE.com. And use the code OTF25 to save $20 off your first ride with Von Lane. That's Von Lane, Elevated Regional Bus Transportation. Thank you very much to Von Lane for sponsoring the Winning Drive. Really appreciate them and their ongoing support of On Texas football. All right, get some super chats here. A couple super chats. Jay Lee with a super chat says, us and a handful of schools, 5, have 20 plus super blue chips He said number 7 and lower have single digits or less. This means other teams, they have more money to spend. All right, thoughts? What are your thoughts? I mean, to his point, the blue chips are really expensive. That Jim Nagy said that in his quote, right? He's like, that's why if we have the blue chip that's closer to a 3-star player in our ratings, we're gonna grab the 3-star guy. It's a better value and a better discount for us. So what are your thoughts about Jay Lee's comment here?
I think he's on it. Also, when you're looking at having money to spend, a lot of these schools don't have 5, maybe 6 All-American level guys ineligible for the NFL draft, which means they are coming back. And those are guys that you obviously work to pay to keep on your roster, right? Texas would certainly have landed an edge or 2 more already in this class if they didn't already have to look ahead to paying Colin Simmons to come back for a 3rd year, right? Because if Texas isn't gonna, what Colin Simmons could make on the open market? Probably as much. Colin Simmons would have made the most of any player in the country, not a quarterback. 100%. If he hit the open market today, said, I'm a free agent, I'm entering the portal, I mean, who's to say what it would get? But Texas is sitting there saying, okay, we got to look at returning a Ryan Wingo, a Brandon Baker, perhaps a Trevor Gooseby. It's one of those situations where, as you look at it in the NFL lens, Rod, why hasn't my team signed anybody? Well, you just re-signed the quarterback. You extended the left tackle. You found a way to keep the interior defensive line intact. And you're sitting there saying, well, there's so many shiny free agents. We could have made a splash. And it's like, well, you just retained a roster that was pretty darn good the year before. And that's the key for next year as well. And it's a large reason why you're seeing Texas not as competitive this year with a lot of these decisions that have gone elsewhere, with Texas finishing 2nd otherwise.
All right. Thank you for the super chat, Jay. We appreciate that. Another super chat from Sabzilla. It says here, it says, for recruiting has been so horrible for
Taking matters into your own hands.
Just want to voice frustration there. I get it. We do have another announcement coming up. Jamarian Carlton, actually. That'll be coming up about 4 o'clock, a little after 4 o'clock. So we will be monitoring that announcement, hoping that the Longhorns get some good news coming down to him and Baylor. How about this one? Colton says, should we trust Sark's late push in recruiting like last year?
Yes. Absolutely. The point is this. We've talked about stacking class on top of class on top of class. Texas has done that. They're in a great position to fight for and potentially win a national championship this year. If you think that this staff is going to sit around and say, hey, all right, we landed the number 1 class, check that box, we don't need to do it again, I don't know what to tell you, right? They're going to find ways to flip guys. They're going to be in a position to win a lot of football games on the field. They're going to be in a position, once again, to send a lot of guys into the NFL. And if you're thinking, it's going to be difficult for a recruit who's watched their current program that they're committed to kind of stumble and fall this fall, and have a Texas coach sit on their couch later in the year, say, hey, we're about to send 30 guys to the NFL in the last 3 drafts, as well as 3 back-to-back-to-back playoff appearances, probably something that no one else has done elsewhere. I think that's going to be pretty difficult, no matter what the money is. So, yeah, they're going to be pushing hard late once again.
All right. Good stuff there. Appreciate it, CJ. How about this one for the panel? Will schools not play recruits whose contracts are in dispute? No one can afford to lose games. That's interesting. The thing about NIL and these numbers, Coach, that because the NFL, there's always pressure to play the guys who are being paid the most. Period. That's just the reality situation. The guy's being paid a lot of money. We got to play him. So that's why the rookie wage scale for them worked so well too. Obviously drove down the guaranteed money for rookies, but also, some of those guys who were making the big bucks. There's always pressure for those guys to play immediately. Do you think there's going to be that kind of pressure at the college level for now that we're seeing guys like Felix Ojo, his situation come in? Is there going to be pressure like that? I know it's a different system overall. Do you think that?
I think personally it depends on how well that player has developed and what he's doing on the field. If Ojo is a bust as a freshman and he's not producing and he's making more than all the other linemen combined, you got a problem. You know, you kind of rolling the dice on a guy who is making more than all the other linemen combined. You know, so that's the problem you get into when you put out that much money to sign one guy and he's not what you thought he was. Then what do you do?
Yeah, that's the question that I'd stumble with, Coach, because in pro sports we hear about players, veteran guys taking pay cuts. Maybe they come off an injury, maybe they don't have the year that they want. Team friendly deals, they take pay cuts. They're just trying to extend their pro career. A pay cut essentially in college is just saying, hey, there's the door, right? And it's one of those things because it hasn't necessarily set in for a lot of college kids to say, wait a minute, you're going to be paying me 30% less than what I was a year ago. That was the whole reason why I got here. I'll go somewhere else. And that's eventually how it pans out, fair or not, but it's a little different. And there's no easy way to go around handling a guy on your team who's making a lot of money but not producing. You ultimately just have to bench him and pray he develops for the next year.
Yeah, think the league can't cut him. Right? Can't cut ties with him. All right. Thanks, Bruno Troy. Salty Q says, has there been any recruits that Texas doesn't follow after hearing their NIL requests?
Yeah. There was a defensive player last year who I know laid out a number for the coaching staff, and I think it was a couple chuckles from the coaching staff that just said, you won't find that here. And the recruit ended up elsewhere, but it happens. I mean, sometimes it's just like any other thing. You get on the phone for a roofing contract and you get a quote and you're just like, click, right? It's just how it goes. It's business.
I love that. Even though you're not old school, CJ, you still do the old school click.
Yeah. This is off track, Rod, but I saw a TikTok the other day that was like, how do the generations of like, how do you pick up the phone? And it's like, hello. And then the other one is just like,
yeah, exactly.
How do you hang up the phone? You go like that, you click it. And then the other one is just like, you tap the screen. Like the young kids are just tapping screens. I'm like, that's crazy. That is.
You can't tap a screen in frustration. We used to be able to slam the phone down. We were mad.
Oh yeah. Make a statement.
They can't do that, Coach. They just got to press it hard. That's all they can do. All right, a couple of more questions here, then we'll dive into some other topics. CJ, that you can do. You can throw your phone. You could. I wouldn't recommend it though. Please don't do that.
You really couldn't do that when the wire was attached. It'd come flinging right back.
Oh man, yeah, the whole damn thing would go. You got. Oh, that's great. All right, Joseph here says, CJ Rod, how much of it do you think they're waiting on the season's end to see how many go pro in all the conversations? That's a good point. Like Texas, if we're talking about money being allocated to certain guys and retention and the best players make the most money, all those things, which I do believe that Texas they do have that kind of methodology in terms of roster building in regards to the revenue sharing and NIL. But when they go pro, that opens up money. I mean, that opens up a lot of room in your cap, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a good problem to have. You want the problem where you're losing so many guys. That means you had a really good year. If you lose a ton of guys to the league, because this is a relatively young team, right?
Yeah. The problem with what Joseph's saying here is, look, you normally have to announce, I guess the timing in which your season concludes versus signing day is problematic, right? Signing day is on the 3rd, the 4th, maybe. You're going to be playing into January if you're having a great year. Now, maybe you get a guy like a Matthew Golden who you could have anticipated back for 2 years. Now you're saying, wait a minute, he might be headed off to the league. I can now plan ahead for his departure and whoever needs to come take his spot at the receiver spot. It's just not always cut and dry because then you get the tweeners. And in college, they're going to be making a lot of money if they're draft eligible or that caliber to get drafted, right? And again, I think there's a lot of credit that needs to be given to Texas for retaining a lot of guys who had the option to go pro but wanted to return. There's been so many that have been documented, but I certainly think it's challenging towards the end of the year in that regard.
Okay. Yes, we are paying attention to the Jamarian Carlton announcement, which should be coming up here momentarily, I believe, 4:00, somewhere around there. I don't know if he's going to be very punctual or he's going to have, some festivities beforehand, but we'll be monitoring it. And we'll obviously discuss when it happens, what goes down there. And CJ, just for those out there, are we talking about a 50-50 here? Or is there a lean one way or the other? Or is it a coin toss?
Great question. I put 60-40 in terms of Baylor earlier today. John, maybe heavily or a little bit more heavily in favor of Baylor. That's kind of been where things have been trending over the last week or so. So I would expect the Baylor Bears to be pretty happy in the next 10 minutes or so.
Okay, there you have it. All right. See, CJ, you just kind of spoiled it for folks out there. They wanted to be optimistic. So, hey, maybe you'll get a good surprise there.
I'd love to be wrong. I'm good at that.
We would all love for CJ to be wrong about that. All right, so there you go. Jamarian Carlton will be announcing at about 4 o'clock here. Okay, I want to get to a couple of other things. I know we're close to the announcements. Like I said, we'll be interrupted anytime as soon as it goes down. We'll discuss it. But I want to talk about this ESPN article. There was an ESPN article about areas of concern for the top 25 college football teams. And I was curious, I'm sure you guys were, to see what the area of concern was for Texas. They said the biggest area of concern for Texas as a top 25 team was the Texas offensive line. Do you agree or disagree that it's the O-line is the biggest area of concern for Longhorn fans in 2025?
What do you think, Coach?
I agree.
You agree?
Yeah, I agree. You've got too many starters to replace. Although we feel really good about those starters, we haven't seen them gel together as a group. And that's going to go a long way in determining the kind of season that Arch has and our running backs have.
I completely agree. And, we talk about it. My big point for this offensive line, why you should be optimistic, is, look, you got 3 fourth-year guys on the interior. You saw great things out of Trevor Gooseby. You got a 5-star right tackle. That's great in theory, but I think gel, that's the biggest word. And, Coach, you mentioned it. It's a little bit different than just saying, I got this guy, I got that guy. And when communication issues happen, you see breakdowns and twists and stunts. That completely cripples an offense. Texas, fortunately, last year, we all thought that Michigan game was where they would just really start to pick on a DJ Campbell and maybe a Cam Williams working together for the first time. They actually played pretty well in that game. But across the board, it's everybody working together for the first time. And, Coach, that's a difficult thing to ask early on out of the gate.
Yeah, offensive line, a lot of it is being on the same page, being hive-minded, if you will. That takes reps together. These guys have experience, but yeah, I'm with you. The reps together take it. I mean, you take for granted Jake Majors started more games than any other player in Texas football history. That's crazy. It's great at the center position. So
great point.
So I'm with you. I think there will be just a little inconsistency early. I don't think they'll be bad. I think they'll be inconsistent early. Hopefully they'll round into form late in the season once they get those reps together as a unit. All right, let's get to something else that I wanted to, before that, let's thank a sponsor. Let's thank our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery before we move on here. Flat Creek Estate Winery, folks, just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award for their vintage wine, Super Texan. Been bragging about the Super Texan for some time now. Well, now we know it's truly worth bragging about. They entered the Super Texan into the San Francisco Wine Festival earlier this year. It scored a 98 out of 100. It was named the top red blend in the country. So now our friends over at Flat Creek not only can brag about the Super Texan being the best red blend in the great state of Texas, but also the best red blend in the country. The Super Texan and other Flat Creek Estate wines are now available at Specs, at HEBs. They also had a display at our local Central Market here in town. So the word is getting out indeed about the great wines over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. Also, they have a gorgeous venue, barbecues, wine tastings every single weekend. It is perfect for a day date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. That is Flat Creek Estate Winery, flatcreekestate.com. And thank you very much to Flat Creek for sponsoring the winning drive and for being a part of the Owen, Texas football family. We really appreciate them. And you will as well. Now, if you're just trying their fantastic wines, but if you go out there to their amazing venue. So thank you very much to Flat Creek Estate Winery. All right. Guys, just moments away from Jamarian Carlton's announcement. CJ has said 60-40. He believes Baylor might have the advantage here in this recruitment. Let me ask you this, because Samari Matthews is tomorrow. Have you put out your, what the odds are for that one, in your opinion? What are you?
I felt great about Samari Matthews for quite a while. Again, South Carolina, the home team, is a team that's making the big rush there. Clemson's on the outside. Miami, a team to watch. But look, I think he really enjoyed his time in Austin in the spring when he had a 4-day unofficial visit. And I think Texas did a great job on his official visit. And if that's the case, I've said it a few times, but if that's the case and he ends up committing to the University of Texas, Mark Orfe will have gone 3 for 3 with his top cornerback prospects. And that's not an easy thing to do year one as an assistant coach at the University of Texas. Again, we've talked about kind of the ups and downs of Chad Scott so far, and we talked about it last year with, some of the defensive line woes with Kenny Baker getting acclimated. I think that's a great sign for the Longhorns if Matthew ends up committing to Texas. And right now I lean towards the Longhorns in that one as well.
I would like that. I'm a big fan of Samari Matthews. Been watching his film a little bit too. Very natural as a defensive back. I think he'd be great to impress coverage. Really patient, got good feet, got loose hips, sweet hips. But that will be tomorrow. So we'll be monitoring that announcement tomorrow. But today, and actually, momentarily, like I said, we are hoping to get good news, but we'll wait on the Jamarian Carlton announcement. I want to ask you guys about something else too. I saw there were some old photos that were put out from old SEC media days. Some of the best moments of old SEC media days. Texas will be represented by Arch Manning at SEC media days. Anthony Hill's going to be part of the group. Michael Taft's going to be a part of that group. Coach, there was a photo, like a really all-time great photo of Johnny Manziel at SEC media days, and there is a huge media scrum. I mean, I can't count how. I mean, look, it was epic. All right, it was definitely one of the biggest showings at the SEC media days for any player. The Arch Manning media scrum, it's going to be, it might be all time, Coach.
Yeah.
It might be all time. It might beat that photo of Johnny.
Yeah, I think it'll be bigger than Johnny's. There's just so much anticipation. I think what the picture of Johnny was the season after he won the Heisman. A lot of hype around him. But even Johnny didn't have the hype around him that Arch has now. All eyes are going to be on Arch. I feel sorry for him to have to go through that, but I think he knows what he signed up for, and I think he's trained up enough to, be able to handle it and not let it get to him, psychologically or mentally, put more pressure on him than he could handle, or actually than he puts on himself and his family puts on him.
Yeah, I think he'll be ready for the pressure of the moment. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he does a great job of handling himself with the media. But yeah, I think it'll be the biggest media scrum probably in SEC history. Maybe Tim Tebow had a big one. I had to go check before. Yeah. I'm sure Tim Tebow had a big one too. So maybe I got to go look for the Tim Tebow photos and see how big the media scrum there was. But Arch is going to be, like I said, it's going to be an all-timer. There ain't no doubt about it.
It's going to be a zoo.
Are you going to try to get there early, CJ, just to make sure you got a good spot? You're going to say,
we got to bring you the best content possible here at OTF. So I'll be sitting up there elbowing. I'll be looking, you boxing out like Draymond Green, get my spot.
Don't let be like have it, babe. Let them have it right there.
I got to get the shoulder pads that the Georgia fans wear, and just get in there and just start spiking people.
Get out of my way, nerd.
Real quick, we are monitoring Jamarian Carlton's at the table right now. When he starts speaking, we might pull up the Matthew's got the Instagram on the backside waiting to pull up. So when he gets going, I don't know exactly what his timeline looks like in terms of when that announcement will come, but we're going to have the latest for you guys whenever that comes.
CJ, how has Baylor's recruiting looked so far this year?
Actually, surprisingly, very well. And I made a point of this on one of the live streams earlier in this week, but they've done a great job of retaining talent from Waco. Jamarian Vincent from Waco Connolly, a 4-star safety, is committed to Baylor. London Smith from Waco U is actually one of my favorite wide receivers in this cycle. He's committed to Baylor. I mean, they've done a great job of retaining a lot of the Central Texas, up I-35 in between here and Waxahachie, essentially. Those guys are going to Baylor this year, and they're playing the game now. And that was one of Aranda's big things earlier is I think he had a little bit of some Dabo in him. There's like, kids will come to Baylor because they want to come to Baylor. Come to find out, kids just don't want to go to Baylor. Now, you start throwing a couple dollars at them. Kids are willing to go to Baylor, right? They're willing to live in Lubbock for a few years, and they're certainly playing the game better than they have before.
Yeah. That's interesting because, Baylor, I know Dave Aranda for a while, there was some talk that Dave Aranda had miscalculated the NIL landscape.
Yeah.
And then they had to reevaluate and reassess things. And I think now at least they have a better plan. Everybody's got their own plan. You can't try to do what somebody else is doing. That's why everybody like Tech's doing their own thing with Cody Campbell. Hell, USC, nobody knows what USC doing, but USC's doing something that others aren't doing. We heard what Oklahoma's plan is. I think Oklahoma's got 15 commits in their 2026 class. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, like 9 of them are 3-stars. Not that means anything. Those are good players. But the Oklahoma faithful upset. They're like, hey, what's going on here? And Jim Nagy said, I tried to tell y'all what I'm doing. These are 3-stars that we got rated just as good as blue chips. And I don't think Oklahoma fans want to hear that. Pretty much.
It's funny. Tom Herman tried to lock down Houston when he was there. It was all about Houston. And then SMU's tried to lock down Dallas, and then Traylor, the 210 tried to lock down San Antonio. And you see that at Baylor trying to lock down 254. The problem is they're just not that much. You have a good talent base, but not compared to 214, not compared to 713 or whatever Houston is, know. But I think he has made a commitment to land those star Central Texas players to come play for their home team.
That's a good strategy.
I agree.
It's good strategy. It's tougher these days than it used to be to keep those guys in your backyard. All right.
Not as many Texas guys too. Austin. It's dried up over the last few years. I know Texas has Jaheim Riley, but Matthew, if you don't mind bringing up the stream real quick. Jamarian Carlton has indeed committed to Baylor. That is one that we got some intel over the last week or so that leads us to think, well, maybe not the greatest stream here, but he's got a Baylor jersey on right now. And that's, again, a big win for Baylor. Texas, I don't think, is in any position to panic, but it just kind of continues that July drought, if you will, on the trail.
Yeah. Like I said, you said it was 60-40, CJ, so you were pretty confident that Baylor fans were going to be happy about the announcement and his Jamarian Carlton to the Baylor Bears. And he was I like his skill set, though, from what I watched. Guy, he can be a gap flex guy for you. 6'5"?
Yeah, about 6'5", 250.
Yeah, real good-looking athlete, coach. So I'm sure Dave Aranda will utilize him well in that system there. But moving on, so the next one is Samari Matthews coming up tomorrow. And CJ feels better about the Samari Matthews announcement, but South Carolina is the close. They're the kind of the home school there, and they're the ones closest. And they got a good track record with DBs. So it worries me a little bit with South Carolina right now. They got a good sell that they've been producing some really good NFL caliber DBs. And that's a good sales pitch. But hey, Texas got Coach Akita, they got DBU, they got a lot to offer as well. So I think that'll be fun to watch. We'll, of course, have it covered for you, and we'll be giving you all the details about that tomorrow. All right, let's jump into another topic here. I want to get into another ESPN article. They said that they had the top 25, looking at the top 25 teams and the most anticipated arch villains for each school. And Texas was pretty easy. They just took the easy route. They said Oklahoma was Texas arch villain. And yes, that is Texas' rival. But I would say that right now, I would replace that with Georgia if I'm Texas. I would say Georgia is the one you got to figure out. You got to go to Georgia to do it. Georgia took you out twice last year. We know Kirby Smart is a defensive mastermind, Sark being an offensive mastermind. There's that chess match. I mean, hell, you can make the argument that Kirby Smart dropped your quarterback's draft stock to the 7th round. Like that's you can make that claim. Like that's how good that defensive game plan was. I would say it's Georgia to me. I would say it's Georgia. I would say Sark's got to figure out because to me he's I would say he's figured out Oklahoma. Brent Venables is still a great defensive coach, and hell, man, Oklahoma rival. You never know what's going to happen in the rivalry game. But I do think Sark has the upper hand there. And if he loses that game, we'll come on here and we'll complain and we'll talk trash, and of course that's what we'll do, right? We'll critique it. But I believe we all think Texas has an upper hand on Oklahoma right now. Talent, recruiting, momentum, the culture, all that, right? Georgia's the one that I can say you ain't chasing Georgia, but Georgia's the standard right now that you gotta surpass, that you have to meet, and you got to go to Georgia to do it. And right now, we were just talking about recruiting. It's not a metro area in the country producing talent better than Atlanta. And Texas been trying their damnedest. Whether you're looking at the administrative talent they're bringing in the front office, or you're looking at the players they're starting to recruit in the latest recruiting classes, they're trying to get a little bit of a foothold in Atlanta. And they got some wins there. But if you win and beat Georgia, you'll get more recruiting wins in Atlanta. So to me, I would replace that with Georgia.
I like that take. I do. And it's easy I guess it's not easy to sit there and say, the biggest school that you want to beat every year is not one of your top 2 rivals, but it is the school that has been the gold standard and in the position of which you've been trying to take over for the last 3 years. So to your point, going into Athens this year, can Texas finally get over the hump and beat Georgia? Mm-hmm. That to me is basically I don't want to say like the what the measuring stick will end up being for Texas this year, because obviously we've seen teams lose to whoever and end up winning the title. But if you can do that, you certainly solidified that this is a sustainable product that isn't going to go anywhere. And I think we all are of that belief to begin with. But Georgia's been that team that Texas can't shake so far, and it hasn't really been that close.
I don't know that you can convince the fans of that.
I agree.
The fans are more about OU and A&M. But listen, unless John Mateer comes in with a Superman cape on,
hey,
we should win the Oklahoma game. We should win the A&M game in Austin. So I agree with you. Georgia, not counting what the fans call as a rival, Georgia is a team that the Longhorns have to beat to make the next step that they want to take to be a national contender, not a national runner-up, not a playoff finalist, but a national contender. I agree with you, Rod. Georgia is a team that we need to have our bullseye on. Not that anybody's going to take Oklahoma for granted, especially with John Mateer. Not anybody's going to take A&M for granted because of the recruiting class they're having. But in order for us to take the next step, it's almost a given we have to beat Oklahoma and A&M. And then Georgia is the one that's standing in the way, is the Goliath standing in the way of us getting into the national spotlight consistently.
Yep. And it's I totally agree with you. I'm not going to disrespect your rival. Like I'm not disrespecting rivalry. I understand what it means. So yeah, you got to beat A&M and you got to beat Oklahoma. Sark understands that's part of his job, right? You don't do that, then the fans, man, they'll turn on you. All right, you got to beat the rivals.
But you get beat by Georgia 3 times in a row.
Yes, exactly right.
You got a problem.
You got a problem. you got a bit of a problem. And it's Texas. Texas isn't favored in that game, right? They're actually an underdog in that game. They're only underdog in Ohio State game and that Georgia game, if I'm not mistaken. Last time I looked at the lines, I might have to go look at the latest ones, but I believe the last time I looked at it, Texas was an underdog in the Ohio State game and in Georgia.
+3.
Right,
I think +3.
+3.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean that ain't gonna be no. It's going to Georgia. Hell, they got a winning streak going on right now. Now, Texas has broken a lot of great win streaks. Went to Alabama and did in Tuscaloosa. And Texas knows how to do that, but that is gonna be that's gonna be a Herculean task to go up there and take out Georgia. But I'm with you, Coach. 0-3 to Kirby Smart. You definitely ain't gonna be able to recruit in Atlanta after that. Not for, and it's gonna be tough. It's gonna make it even
it's gonna be tough.
So and I think Sark understands that. Sark understands how big that game is. And I don't think that we'll see. I don't know how explosive Georgia's gonna be on offense. I think that, and we don't know what Gunnar Stockton's gonna be. That's been the big issue with me. It's Georgia. Georgia's defense is gonna always have dudes on dudes on dudes. Curry's been stockpiling that thing for years. Offensively, though. I wonder if they still had, because last year they took a huge step back offensively.
Yeah,
and I wonder if they're to continue that, or are they gonna now kind of prioritize bringing in explosive athletes on offense? They got good athletes, but that offense took a step back. Could have just been Carson Beck. Maybe it was just Carson Beck.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far into Georgia talk here, but I'm not a Gunnar Stockton guy. I just he's a complete unknown for me. But the fact that Georgia didn't go out there and grab a portal quarterback, when I think that there were plenty of options that would have loved to have jumped to a Georgia team, speaks to their confidence in him. On top of that is, look, we've seen Georgia win with, I don't want to say it, but like bad quarterbacks. Stetson Bennett didn't move the needle, didn't make any type of splash in the NFL, 2-time national champion. And that's what they build their philosophy off of, is an offensive line that's going to move you no matter who you are. A running game that's going to pick up chunk yardage whenever they need to. And a defense that's going to just physically wear you the hell out and make you not want to play football anymore. And that's what their teams have done. Last year, they thought, obviously, and this, I thought a lot of folks thought this, quarterback would have elevated their game. It wasn't the case. They didn't have the pass catchers. Their philosophy didn't match up with what they showed on the field last year, which was, we got to drop back and throw the football because we have a strength at quarterback.
Yeah.
They rely on that offensive line, and you saw it a little bit in the second half of the Texas, the SEC championship game. You get some waggles. You get your offensive line really dominating folks instead of a quarterback in the pocket that's going to turn the rock over. That's when Georgia's at its best, because that defense isn't going to flounder or isn't going to take any steps back anytime soon.
Yeah, Gunnar Stockton earned my respect when Makuba hit him, and I saw him. He was knocked out, Coach, for about a second or two, and he did not let go of the football. Man, held on to the football.
Yeah.
Any regular person would let that ball go. He got some dog in him. He held on to that ball. Because that was a hell of a hit by Makuba, man. It was legal too. It was a hell of a hit, and it was all legal. Makuba was the best at that. Makuba was the best at the borderline hit. It could have been a flag, but nah, it wasn't. Exactly. It's like it could have been a flag. It's like, actually, it wasn't. When you brought it, like, it wasn't. You're like, I don't know how it wasn't, because it looked like it should have been a flag, but he was great at delivering the bow, like right where, putting the pads exactly where his target was, and it wasn't. That was a legal hit.
He had a very similar hit to that against Arizona State in overtime.
Oh yes,
on the 18-yard or 20-yard scramble that Leavitt had.
Yeah.
I was watching that game again for some reason, and came across that play. Actually, I had a reason. Maybe I can pick y'all's brains or somebody in the chat. I was looking for a specific play.
Go ahead.
To make a comparison, I was looking for the double pump middle slip screen to Gunnar Helm. Texas didn't complete it, but they ran it. I thought it was against Arizona State. I think it might be against Georgia in the SEC championship game. I haven't watched that game yet, but if anybody knows, please let me. It's been driving me nuts. I've been trying to make a comparison on it for a few weeks now, but for those that don't get it, drop back to pass, fake the left screen, fake the right screen, then you got a tight end slip with some offensive line blocking up in the middle. It's been a crazy phenomenon play over the last few years in the NFL. Sark tried to adopt it. They ran it in a key situation last year, and they didn't complete it. But I was like, I like it. I've been trying to find it ever since.
Oh, I know exactly. I can see it in my head. I can see the play. I'm gonna find it, CJ. I'm gonna find that play because I think it is in the SEC title game too.
Yeah, gonna have to go watch it again.
Oh yeah, any excuse to go back and watch old games. Oh, did he find it? Oh, was it?
No, it's close.
It's close. It's a middle one though. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think I have it somewhere in my note. I gotta go back and look. CJ, after the show, I'm gonna go look.
Okay.
Nah. I'll go look. I can't do it on the show because I'm gonna be distracted. All right, I'll do it after because now CJ's got my mind working. All right, because I know we're close to the end of things, I wanted to share these John Ewing gambling stats and odds. He has put out some tweets recently about the most bet on week 1 games, and no shock at all. All right, Texas, Ohio State. It ends up being the most bet on of all the week 1 games. That's 64% of the money. So I bet MGM, by the way. 64% of the money is on Texas +3. 90% of the money is on the over 50.5. So people like Texas and that +3, coach, at Texas versus at Ohio State.
I do too.
They love. I know. I think that's easy. I feel that's me being cocky and arrogant. I was like, I feel like that's good. I feel like that's good money right there. I feel like it's good value.
Put some money on that, Rod?
You know what? I probably need to. CJ's probably already done it. CJ, you already put some money on it? CJ already did it. No? Okay.
Not here.
Also, the Texas is the most bet on team, according to John Ewing at BetMGM, the most bet on team for week 1 of all the teams. That includes Notre Dame. Also, he pointed out as well that if you look at the Heisman Trophy betting, the highest ticket percentage is Manning at 21.3% of the tickets, and Jeremiah Smith is right behind him at 12.3%.
Wow.
And the highest handle
12.3%.
12.3% of the tickets bet have been, thank you very much, Matthew, on Jeremiah Smith. That big game 1 that's going to be huge for Texas. That's going to be a huge game. It's going to be a huge number too. The highest handle percentage has been Arch Manning, 32.8% of the handle. Jeremiah Smith at 11.2% of the handle bet for the Heisman Trophy this upcoming season. So 1 and 2, maybe your 2 best. I don't know what the odds are for the Heisman, but at least for betting purposes, the most bet on of the Heisman candidates will be both in that game. If this continues, both in that game when Texas goes to Ohio State.
God, that's gonna be fun, man. Again, I'm excited. That is crazy though.
That's wild.
Jeremiah Smith, Devontae Smith, obviously the last Heisman at wide receiver. You don't see it very often. I think it might be one of those things. Well, 2 things. For him to have the 3rd lowest odds as a sophomore wide receiver is just absurd.
Yeah.
The second thing is there might be too many mouths to feed at Ohio State. And I think it might be one of those things where you see the statistical season not match up to the freshman campaign because you were so worried about a Cardinal Tate and Mecca Egbuka, everybody else. I don't know. That feels like a bet that I wouldn't want to make is 10-1 at wide receiver. I do, and I mentioned this the other day. I like Carson Beck's value. I'm not going to bet it. I'm not a fool. I like his value at 33-1. That's a favorable quarterback system over in Miami. We just saw, Cam Ward put up some crazy numbers. Last year was a top 3 Heisman finalist there. On top of that, that defense is going to be bad. They're going to be playing 50 to 40 shootouts every single game.
That's true.
If he takes any type of step forward or bounce back from a year ago, the ACC is horrible. I could see it.
Oh,
Rod, okay. Not to derail what we're talking about. What's your early prediction of how Texas defends Jeremiah Smith?
They'll probably try to do what they did last year if there's any way schematically they can pull it off, which is a lot of brackets, a lot of double teams, guys over the top.
That's what Ohio State's going to be ready for.
Yes, they will be ready for it. So you better have a counter, you better have a change up. But I initially, man, it worked so well to take them out of the game. It really did. And now you have, if you're Texas, the luxury, and we don't know, maybe that quarterback they have there at Ohio State is going to be good. I think Julian Sand right now is kind of the leader in the clubhouse, end up starting. But if I'm Texas, I think your pass rush, you want to try to make him hold on to the football for just a split long, because your pass rush, I think, is going to be an elite pass rush this season. I mean, you were elite last year too, but I think that's also something you're going to be able to depend on. And I want to put an inexperienced quarterback under duress as much as possible. So my game plan would probably be built around basically putting as much pressure on the quarterback as possible. I want to, because Will Howard was a veteran. Now, say what you want about Will Howard, but I mean, he had played a lot of football. He's seen a lot of football. Whoever's going to start for Ohio State, they do not have that advantage. They have not seen a lot of football, and this is going to be the biggest game of the year, week 1. The speed of the game, whoever that quarterback is, can you imagine the speed of the game for that quarterback? Colin Simmons coming off the edge. So to me, Coach, I would probably focus more on that. If I had to allocate resources, it'd be more allocating resources to pressure the quarterback than it would be to try to put a safety over the top of him and bracket coverage on Jeremiah Smith. I definitely would double team him though. Like single coverage with Jeremiah Smith would be a mistake. Now you could do it, but you better make sure you get to that quarterback before that quarterback finds out you in single coverage on Jeremiah Smith. That I wouldn't take that chance. And I don't think PK will anyway. PK don't play a lot of man coverage anyway. A lot of zone coverage. And they'll play a lot of zone coverage against Ohio State.
Yeah. We talked about the coverage, the Bill Belichick last year, Rod. You double Jeremiah with cornerback 2 at the time, which Manny Muhammad, you throw a safety over the top, and then you put Jade on Egbuka. Mm-hmm. You basically just live with what the life would be like with Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis. And I think Ohio State fans took it the wrong way when we talked about it, because they're like, you're just going to leave 3 5-star wide receivers wide open. Like, I mean, Texas has a good secondary, and on top of that, look, we're not just going to let Jeremiah Smith game break the entire thing. And it ended up being essentially what Texas did, in 1 catch for 3 yards. I'll give you Nux, because I thought we did well on that one. I thought we brainstormed a beautiful baby when it came to figuring out how to stop Ohio State there.
Nice. Yeah, but they're going to have a counter for that this year.
Yes.
Albeit with a new quarterback.
Yep.
They're going to be ready for that. They're going to have an answer. They're going to move them around more. They're going to do something.
Coach, have you ever played the same team twice in a row at any point?
No.
I can't imagine what that game plan or schematic change would be. Obviously, there's 9 months in between the game, but that's got to be weird, right?
Well, I think a coach's first instinct is don't let them stop you the way they stopped you last year. Be prepared for that. Don't be an idiot. I mean, just think of how bad Ohio State would look if they let Texas do the same thing to Jeremiah Smith as they did last year. Yeah. That's going to be a lot of criticism thrown their way. I look for and we got Dwayne Akina. There's nothing he hasn't seen. He stopped better than Jeremiah Smith before. Maybe not many, but he's dealt with Jeremiah Smith before many times in his career successfully. So let's let the master do his work. Right, Rod?
Damn right. Yeah. Well said there, Coach. Well said. Trusting Coach Akina. You damn sure about that. How about one last question before we get done with things? How much of a scheme change is Matt Patricia? That is the $1 million question, Salty Q. Because nobody knows if he's going to try to keep the foundation of the Jim Knowles defense. Because there are a lot of Jim Knowles enthusiasts that thought that Jim Knowles changed his system a lot when he got to Ohio State from his time at Oklahoma State. Because there were some things that Ryan Day, sometimes some non-negotiables in terms of how Ryan Day had, what vision he had for his defense. And so he tailored things up there at Ohio State. And some people don't know if Jim Knowles did that because Ryan Day, suggested it, or if he just adapted to, Big Ten football and the roster that was available to him,
What about the talent difference that he had to work with?
Exactly. That's some people was like, oh, he just had this. He finally had some true edge rushers. He's like, I'm gonna put a 4 down on the field. That's what we're gonna do because I got some legit edge rushers. So we don't really know. But my point is, getting back to it, the same thing can be said of Matt Patricia. We're not sure if he's gonna keep what Jim Knowles was already doing there and go, all right, we're gonna have the framework of the Jim Knowles defense, and I'll input my little, whatever, my defenses, my coverages, the little quirks that I have about, defense and whatever it may be, my belief system. I'll input that into the system, but the framework will still be what Jim Knowles left there, like what he ran last year. We're not sure. Matt Patricia is known for being very malleable and having a lot of different defenses that he ran when he was with the Patriots. Of course, there was a lot of time with Bill Belichick and his time as the head coach with the Detroit Lions. He was multiple. Yeah. And so we're really not sure if he's going to just take the defense that Jim Knowles ran, or it is a lot to try to implement your own system that quickly. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Most people believe, Coach, what would you do? First is, Matt Patricia just got there. You just won the national championship. You had one of the best defenses in college football and one of the best defensive coordinators and defensive minds in college football running it, and Jim Knowles. Do you keep the same? Do you tell Matt Patricia to run that system, or
no? I think you let Matt look at it and see which of these things that they did last year will fit into what I do. They may be called something different, but there's only so many things you can do, and there's got to be some things that will fit into Patricia's game plan and his experience. And so I don't think you ask him to totally change what he does. Why would you hire him if you ask him to change everything that he did? I think you try to fit what they did in 24 into what Patricia sees that they have talent-wise, and with his matching his schemes in 25. I think it could be a hybrid of the two things that Matt feels comfortable with, but also it has to be something that he feels comfortable with from his experience, knowing how people will try to attack that and knowing the plan B and the plan C. It's a chess game, and if it's not his system, he can't play the chess game. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't know necessarily, what how to counter this and how to counter that if it's not his scheme in one way or another.
Yeah, it's a good point, Coach. Be a fusion of both systems.
Right.
All right. Let's thank our last sponsor, our friends over at South Point Dodge. Before we end today's program, you can get an easy extra point this season when you get to the point with our friends over at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock right now, including the all-new Ram 1500. That's right, folks. You can drive away today in that brand new Ram 1500. My friends over at South Point Dodge do a great job of dealing with any number of issues that you may have. If you need a trade-in, if you need something new, something used, maybe it's a car or a truck, whatever you need, South Point Dodge is Austin's automotive everything. And right now you get employee incentive pricing as well with South Point Dodge. That's right. You pay what the employees pay right now at South Point Dodge. That's the real deal. So go see them in person off of I-35, or you can go online at southpointdodge.com and check out their fantastic inventory there as well. Over 600 vehicles. So there's something for you there at southpointdodge.com. Thank you very much to South Point Dodge for sponsoring the Winning Drive and being a part of the On Texas Football family. All right, guys, just to summarize, for those I'm sure you know by now, Jamarian Carlton decided that he would commit to the Baylor Bears over the Longhorns earlier today. And tomorrow we'll be keeping up with the announcement of Samari Matthews, the cornerback out of Carolina. And the Longhorns are definitely in that recruitment as well. So that we don't know. What time is that commitment, CJ? Do we know what time?
Tomorrow evening.
Tomorrow evening. All right. So whenever it goes down, of course, you want to make sure you got it tuned in here to On Texas Football, and we'll have all the details for you. Thank you very much to Matthew behind the scenes, doing a great job as always. Thank you, CJ. Appreciate all of your expertise, Coach. Thanks for the knowledge. Great stuff. Thank you to our sponsors, Von Lane, vonlane.com. Use that code OTF25 for $20 off your first ride with Von Lane. Flat Creek Estate Winery, flatcreekestate.com, and our friends at South Point Dodge, southpointdodge.com. If we missed any of your questions, I apologize about that. Please direct them to the gentleman at Coffee and Football bright and early tomorrow morning at 8:15, Bobby and Jerry, and then I'll be along for that 1 p.m. live stream tomorrow, and that'll be myself. I do believe we'll have Jeff on there with us as well, but I'm sure some other members of the crew will be coming hang out. So hope you come hang out with us as well. Thanks to all you guys for your participation, the super chats and the questions for Coach and for CJ and for Matthew. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.